Nice. Oh, really fine. Okay.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? I'm Jeremy Kahn. I'm a technology reporter at Bloomberg News. I'm really excited to have on the panel here Greg Brockman, who's the co-founder and CTO of OpenAI, a nonprofit research AI research organization from San Francisco that's done really landmark work pushing the boundaries of what artificial intelligence can do. Greg is particularly well known for their work creating bots that can play and beat some of the world's best human players in a game called Dota 2. Then we have Nagraj Kashyap, who's the global head and managing director of M12, formerly known as Microsoft Ventures. So they do a lot of the venture capital work for Microsoft. And then we have Emily Orton, who is the global head of marketing and communications at Darktrace, a UK-based cybersecurity company, which some of you may know. They are using machine learning and AI to help stop hacking. And I think the topic here was supposed to be sort of, is AI overhyped? Is it hype or reality? And I think, as a first question, I think we need to sort of define a little bit what we're talking about when we talk about AI. And because I think the answer may be a bit different depending on whether we're talking about narrow uses of AI and machine learning, or whether we're talking about artificial general intelligence, trying to get AI that can sort of match human capabilities across or exceed human capabilities across a broad range of what humans do, and with the kind of flexibility that humans tend to have. So maybe we'll just go down the line here. I mean, Greg, you're actually trying to push the boundaries here. Your OpenAI is kind of dedicated to trying to create artificial general intelligence. How do you feel we're doing here? Is there too much hype right now about what AI can do, or we haven't not seen anything yet, and actually it's going to live up to this great potential? What do you think?
Yeah. So the way that I like to think about it is to look at what actually works in practice, and then to look at the trends, right? And to have a sense of what the underlying thing is that moves everything along. And when you look at what's really been happening for the past 6 years, that we've been breaking through these seemingly insurmountable barriers in terms of system performance, right? Computer vision was something that didn't work at all before 2012. Now, if you look at the most popular image recognition data sets, we've gone past human level performance on them. People looked at that and said, well, you're never going to be able to do the hardest supervised learning tasks like machine translation. Turns out that no, like Google, Facebook, all these companies have gotten rid of their old machine translation systems, use deep neural networks. And across all these different application domains, game playing, image generation, it's all the same core idea of a deep neural network. And that this is an idea that's really dated back since the 1960s, and is, every stage people have said, oh, well, it's never going to be able to do this next thing. And so far we haven't been able to really stick to that bound of what it can do.
Right. Nagraj, what do you think? Do you think the idea that we're on the cusp of realizing artificial general intelligence is hype? And then in these more narrow use cases of AI, again, is the potential being overhyped, or are we seeing real traction here, real impact?
So being a VC, I'm not in the business of today funding AGI. That's a little bit of a further stretch for us. Having said that, I would say that from a hype perspective, I actually agree that there's been a lot of advances. I would just be much more happier place if the startups don't all use the term AI machine learning loosely. It's very loosely used today, which actually results in the hype. The way I look at our portfolio, we've got about 70 companies. Among the 70 companies, I would say 60% are what I would call consumers of AI, which is they will use AI machine learning techniques that have been put forward by a lot of open source projects, or Microsoft, or Facebook, or Google. Probably another 30% are advanced consumers, in the sense they will take that and then they'll build on it. Only 5% of our portfolio is what I would call advancers in AI, which is, they're taking they're doing state-of-the-art AI. So they basically will be the next generation of technologies that can be consumed by the rest of the portfolio. And then I think 5% of the portfolio doesn't use any kind of machine learning because they don't need to. Not everybody has to use it. So I think it is hype because of the fact that there's overuse of the term, but there's real progress and actually real utility, and we're seeing that across our portfolio.
Emily, what do you think? You're a company that is certainly using AI for a particular use case, but you've also done quite a lot of research to kind of push forward the technology that you're using as well. So how do you see this shaking out?
Yeah, so Darktrace has one of the largest applications of artificial intelligence across the enterprise in enterprises, 7,000 deployments worldwide. I think I agree that there is hype in AI, and it has become a marketing term, which makes things a bit more difficult. I don't believe that we're at the area of this sort of general artificial intelligence of the sentient human, and I think it's a mistake to. So I think there is real progress being made in practical applications of AI where it's solving specific problems, like how do I recognize human speech, or how would I drive a car, or how would I do the due diligence work that a junior lawyer does. Those are specific questions or specific problems, and AI is making huge leaps forward in those areas. But it's not a continuum, so the progress we're making there doesn't mean we're going to eventually get to a sense of a sentient, machine that understands emotion. There's going to be areas that will remain, I believe, in the remit of the human. For cybersecurity, that is a nice problem that we've looked at, and I think the pinnacle of the AI there is really in decision making and taking action on behalf of the human. So we have our technology is used by our customers not only to find the threats that are just not being caught by human or by traditional security, but the sort of the next generation of that is actually taking response. So a quick example would be if you have a ransomware attack, it could be 20 seconds or so before you've got a very serious situation on your hands, right. A lot of computers encrypted. Security teams just cannot respond in time. They are only human, and they do have downtime. And so that was a real catalyst for our customers to say, okay, we prefer the AI to take decisions on our behalf in that scenario, right. Rather than waiting for us, the human, to come in on Monday morning.
Right. If there were no further progress in AI research, let's say all of our efforts failed, in that hypothetical scenario, just what we sort of have the ability to deploy right now, just those techniques, do you think that is enough for us to kind of consider this technology revolutionary? Will what we already have created have such impact on the way businesses operate, on the way people live, that this will be considered a big revolutionary technology, even if we make no further progress? So what do you think, Greg?
So I do think so, although in a somewhat with a somewhat sad caveat, which is if you look at the internet created this massive startup opportunity, because no matter what was out there, no matter what the big companies were doing, there's always some weird different way of hooking together, let's say taxis with the smartphone or something, right. And you could have a really amazing business come out of that. But with AI, what's working is we basically have a deep neural network, so this one simple idea powered with massive computation, and that it works across a huge number of problem domains. And so what it means is that the incumbents who have access to massive computation resources and have the data sets with the correct labels on them to apply to all these different areas are disproportionately able to reap the benefits. And so I think that what we're seeing already is that the big companies are deploying these technologies to generate huge amounts of dollars. And as a startup, I think there are lots of startups that have AI kind of as a, it's not a standalone business, but it's a component that multiplies your business. So I think it is the case, but I think disproportionately to the big players.
Nagraj, what do you think? And you're in the business of investing in some of these startups. Do any of them have a chance if they don't already have those massive data sets?
Yeah, I think there are cases where the data sets make it insurmountable, but we also have companies that are creating their own data sets, and that is absolutely possible in today's world. Video is an area that's, I think, is an unsolved problem, and one of our companies is creating their own data set. But I think, largely, to your question, I think if progress in fundamental machine learning stopped today, I think there is still a lot of room for innovation. And the example I usually give is, if you look at the last big wealth creation decade, which is all dominated by the smartphone, the reason there was so much wealth created was the platform was standardized, the interface was standardized, and then basically my 13-year-old will hopefully be 16 at some point, can write an application based on the smartphone. Today, he can. You can't do that in machine learning today. You need it's almost like dark science or dark art, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of very, very educated PhDs who are needed to sort of tweak the models. So even if we get to the point where research stops, but we're able to abstract where anybody coming out of high school can sort of then take the advantage and write an app on top of that. That can actually, just that will unleash a lot of wealth, which actually we saw in the smartphone realm. I mean, nobody today, none of the startups who come and pitch to me say, I'm a mobile startup. But every other startup says, I'm an AI machine learning startup. The reason is because it's assumed that mobile, you don't have to say it. It's the platform already exists. With AI machine learning, it does not exist in the same way that mobile does. So I think you can actually create a lot of wealth from a startup perspective, even if you don't do any more fun. Now, that would be a shame if you don't make any progress. That's a different thing.
Yeah, Emily, I mean, obviously in cybersecurity, it's already having a huge impact. Will this be seen as revolutionary, even if we never make it to AGI?
Oh. I mean, it's hard to imagine we just stop progressing.
Yeah.
But I would say yes. I would say, I think at any point you've got to say that there's been fundamental progress. And I think actually cybersecurity is probably the area where there's been some of the most advanced applications because the need has been so strong. If you look at the legal sector, the adoption's been slower there for AI replacing lawyers. There's obviously the cultural issue to get over and the trust issue of do you trust this thing better than a human? And I think in cybersecurity, we almost haven't had that luxury of having that question. We're understaffed in cybersecurity, massive skills shortage. The threats are getting faster, they're getting more sophisticated. And we're probably going to have AI attacks in the future as well. So I think it's been quite a nice case study for AI. So yes, I think so, but we can't stop now because we are at a critical point in terms of, Darktrace's journey was different in that we used unsupervised machine learning, not using training data, actually going out, letting our algorithms learn from the data that they were seeing on our customer environments, which is great because it learns for itself and it is able to spot these novel threats. But I think at the stage we're at now, obviously we've got big data sets as well that can be obviously very valuable.
Right. I was wondering if deep learning is the technique that probably is most associated with the current sort of enthusiasm around AI, and a lot of the narrow use cases are the businesses are actually use deep learning. I'm wondering if there's a lot of people out there saying, well, when it comes to trying to get us to the next level, to get us something much more general, deep learning is hitting a wall. It's never going to take us there. Greg, what do you think? I mean, I think you have an interesting answer on this. So
yeah. I mean, people have been saying this for 50 years that we're at the wall, and maybe they'll be right one day, but it hasn't seemed to happen just yet. It's actually really interesting to look into the history of the field because I think that everyone has this narrative that, just for some reason, that the AI people were so optimistic. They thought they were going to solve computer vision in the summer. They thought they're going to have AGI in 5 years. It was just going to be done in the 1950s. But I think no one ever reads the histories and figures out why. So we've actually spent a decent amount of time really talking to people who have been in the field for a long time and reading the primary text. And the thing that you really start to see is that there were really two camps from the beginning. There were the neural net people, and there were the symbolic system people. And the symbolic system stuff seems much more intuitive. It seems like the kind of thing that you really want, where the smart people think really hard and come up with all the right answers, and you have this big expert system, but no one can get any results. And in 1965, you have Marvin Minsky, who's one of the big symbolic systems people, complaining about the neural net people, saying, hey, the only thing that those people can do, they don't have any ideas. They're just trying to build bigger computers. And here we are, 40, 50 years later, and once again, it's very simple ideas coupled with massive seas of computation. And so, I think that the biggest problem we have right now with neural nets is modern computers are far too slow. It's kind of a crazy statement thinking about what our computers can do. But if you just extrapolate forward the trends, if you look at the remaining wins of the hardware front, the computers for neural networks of 5 years from now are going to be astronomically faster, like about 5 orders of magnitude faster than the computers of today.
Interesting. Nagraj, what do you?
I'd agree. I mean, we obviously at Microsoft are providing a lot of cloud compute, so it's in our best interest to see more of this happen. But also, as a VC, we have seen hundreds of millions of dollars go into essentially chip startups that are sort of doing different architectures to solve training that has not been done. I mean, today, all of us essentially depend on GPUs, which we all know were not meant for machine learning. But the next generation of silicon is already going to come in, which is optimized for these tasks. Plus, we will keep providing more and more cloud compute. So I think there won't be a wall.
Cool. I want to ask we're running low on time, so I want to ask a question on the jobs. I mean, when people talk about AI hype, one of the things people worry about is that, AI is going to obliterate tons of jobs, and we're going to have an era of mass unemployment. Emily, what do you think? I mean, here you have a system that, as you say, can automatically detect threats, increasingly can automatically respond to them. Are you taking a lot of people's jobs?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that AI is going to take some jobs, and be quite clear about that. I think some estimates are as much as 30% of the workforce. Obviously, these are estimates. Cybersecurity is an area I mentioned before where we cannot hire quick enough. I think there's over 1 million job postings open. So we actually need more people in cybersecurity. So it's not taking jobs. It's just the problem has got so much larger than that we've been able to kind of keep up with in terms of adding humans and training people. And it's not a human problem anymore. We're facing technological threats. And so we really need this technology to help the humans and actually upskill them and give them a more fulfilling job. And I think that's an overall theme of really reskilling, which is going to be really important in the future. And I don't think it's too early to start thinking about that. Low-skilled workers are going to be, in some areas, at risk, and I think we do need to think about retraining them. And with cybersecurity, it's about not necessarily having a job where you're looking at logs all day, but you're actually doing much more decision-making and strategic level work, which only a human can do. So the opportunity, if you want to be optimistic about it, is that it will actually create jobs as well, and hopefully playing more to the human skills.
Nagraj, are we heading for an era of mass unemployment? What do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, I think some companies will take a more responsible approach. I mean, it just depends on how you commit. Microsoft has really been committed to sort of augmenting humans as opposed to replacing. Also, one of our portfolio companies, took a really amazing approach, which I thought. So, even if talked about cybersecurity, where there is clearly not a job shortage or not a skill shortage, there's a lot of skill shortage. But even areas like customer service, what they did was they said, look, who better to sort of understand the needs of a product than the super users of that product. Now, so for example, if you have a question for Airbnb, they've created a network of Airbnb hosts that answer the question. But eventually, that's training the machine. Having said that, if you go back to the music royalty model, if the human answers a question that then the machine can answer on their own, the human gets a royalty out of that question. So they have come up with a method of making sure they bring the humans along, and it's sort of an amazing way of thinking about it. Even in the area of customer service, people have come up with a method that you're not actually replacing humans, you're actually giving them a different way to make money.
And Greg, are you worried about that we're all going to be jobless soon?
I think there's a lot of uncertainty right now because we don't know exactly where the technology is going to go. But what we can say for the current shape of the technology is that it's very good at automating parts of jobs, but not the whole thing, right? And I think that the kinds of activities that I think are currently uniquely human are things that require human touch or that require leadership skills, things like that. I think that those kinds of jobs, I think, are things that are going to become even more valuable than they are today. I think in the long run, if you can really build general intelligence, I think that at that point, we really need to re-examine how society works and what it even means to have a job.
Right. In the meantime, if you're an esports player, you might want to think about something other than Dota 2, I imagine.
I think it's made the game even more fun for them.
Right. All right, we're about out of time. Thank you very much to the panelists, and thank you all for listening. It's been good to be here.